Previously, Haruto was reborn into a fantasy world with powers so high in level that they couldn't be measured by a device. This caused immense confusion as he was misunderstood as being magic-less and abandoned by his birth parents, the king and queen. As a baby, he discovered the many uses of his signature barrier magic and secured the demon Fenrirflate as his familiar. After being taken in by a relative of the king, Count Gold Zenfris, Haruto spent the next 9 years with a loving family, though he does have trouble connecting with his little sister. Finally, while training Haruto with a sword recently, Gold realized the monstrous potential in his adopted son and came to the conclusion that he's a demon descendant. Even with that though, he and his wife are determined to love their son and give him a happy life. Haruto is laying in bed, lazing away as he loves to, thinking about how his father has been much more busy recently. Everything else aside, though, he can't really complain since it means he gets to put off sword training. Suddenly, he hears a commotion outside as maids rush down the halls. Curious as to what's going on, Haruto pulls up one of many surveillance barriers he's placed around their home. What he sees, however, is quite concerning. Out in the courtyard, all of their soldiers are being tended to for their wounds. Every one of them have injuries of some sort or the other. Going up to his father, Haruto asks just what has happened here. Gold tells him about how attacks from thieves have been becoming more and more frequent in the region recently. They received info on the thieves earlier and moved to ambush their base, determined to end the threat for good. When they got there though, Gold's forces were the ones who were ambushed. Taken by surprise and outnumbered, the soldiers were forced into defeat due to their own goal of capturing all of the thieves. As several soldiers writhe in pain, Gold tells his son he should go home. This isn't a sight he should have to see at his age. Without a word, Haruto turns to leave, but he has an increasingly grim expression on his face. While leaving, he hears Flay berating Gold for being beaten by the thieves and angrily tells her to shut up. Then, as he passes the soldiers all around the courtyard, Haruto silently summons forth healing barriers that cause all the soldiers' injuries to be fully treated in just seconds. While the soldiers marvel and celebrate this miracle, Gold can only look on in shock. Just what the hell has happened? Later that night, Haruto wakes from his sleep and leaves his room for something. When he opens the bedroom door though, he finds Flay silently standing right outside. Confused, he asks what she's doing there only to be met with complete silence. After some thought, he realizes she's just taking his order to shut up from earlier way too literally. Haruto apologizes to her for losing his temper and tells her that she can speak now. Amusingly enough, Flay apologizes for saying something rude, but she clearly has no idea what that something was. Deciding to just let it go, Haruto asks her if she'd like to join him for something. Up on one of the castle walls, Flay finds herself watching as Haruto summons tens upon tens of surveillance barriers. First and foremost, he intends to find the men who attacked his father's team. In the area where said team was attacked, Haruto finds a group of thieves drinking and making merry along with some men in normal soldier uniforms. Seeing this, Flay wonders out loud if there are people who gave out info to the enemy. Her question raises Haruto's own suspicions about a spy. For now though, there's a thieves' base to be destroyed. Together, Flay and Haruto take off with flight magic, unaware that little Charlotte is watching from a window. In a closed-off room, the lead members of the group of thieves are talking crap about Gold's team and drinking. In the middle of their conversation, an unfamiliar voice breaks in. This is none other than Haruto, followed by Flay, who has an unconscious guard in her grasp. Thinking this to be just some ordinary kid, the group of three become hostile and demand to know who he is. Before they even know what's happening though, Haruto raises a single hand and freezes them all with paralysis barriers. When one of them tries to be aggressive still, Haruto slams him into a wall to shut him up. With his power clearly displayed, he tells the other two they must answer his questions or face the consequences. Later, after a lengthy interrogation, Haruto has learned some interesting stuff. For starters, these thieves aren't actually thieves at all. Rather, they're soldiers from the Empire, their neighboring kingdom. They were sent here to brew chaos within the lands, so that instability would spread. This would make it easier for the Empire to invade. Flay brings up a point Haruto himself was thinking of though. There should be plenty of guards stationed at the border to prevent this exact sort of thing. Luckily, one of the captured soldiers is terrified enough that he sheds light on this mystery without even being asked to. He tells the two that they have accomplices in the border guard. He hasn't actually met them, but they provide support when it comes to shady operations. Knowing that they'd need someone in a position of authority for this to work, Haruto guesses that someone in the kingdom is after his father's life in particular. With all their information shared, the thieves beg to be spared so they can pull back. Before the lead thief can even finish his groveling though, Haruto speaks up. He thanks them for their help and proceeds to give Flay a chilling order. She is to burn this fort, their inn and everything inside it. Hearing this, the thieves are outraged, claiming they've done just as asked. Haruto, however, couldn't care less. He tells them none of that really matters to him as much as one simple fact: they tried to hurt his father. Nobody gets away with that. Not much later, Haruto and Flay silently walk away from a fort going up in flames. After praising her work, Haruto decides to show no mercy to those who purposely move against his family. His resolve steeled, he tells Flay to send an anonymous letter to his father that explains the situation with the thief fort. Gold is sitting in his office with Charlotte the next day when he receives the letter, with reports confirming that the thief fort was burnt to ash completely. Gold already suspects who is responsible for the damage. Between the high control over fire magic and her ability to command lesser demons, it seems quite clear to him that Flay is involved. That aside, the involvement of the Empire has him concerned that some things he's been worried about might actually be close to happening. Suddenly, Charlotte decides to speak up, asking who defeated the bad guys. Though he suspects Flay quite strongly, Gold phrases his beliefs in a way that leaves Charlotte even more curious than before. Suddenly, she gets off his lap and heads out, telling him she just remembered something she has to do. Once outside his office, Charlotte remembers what she saw last night and wonders just what her brother is, knowing only one person who can answer her. She heads over to Flay and sums up her thoughts in one question: what is her brother? Between seeing him flying, finding the robot copy he keeps in his room, and the scary aura that surrounds him, Charlotte has no clue what to think of him. Flay, fanatic that she is, just tells Charlotte she's clever for recognizing Haruto's power. She starts singing praises of how powerful Haruto is, but then tells Charlotte she can't actually reveal his true nature. Later, Flay reports everything Charlotte said to Haruto, who misunderstands and thinks she mistrusts him. Just to make sure she doesn't see anything she isn't supposed to, Haruto places a surveillance barrier that can send him an alert about where she is and what she's doing at any time. That night, Haruto exits his bedroom to use the toilet and senses Charlotte sneakily spying on him. When he tries to speak to her, the little girl runs off. Later, he even finds her spying on him in the bath. The following days are much of the same. When he's training, when he's reading, when he's bathing, pretty much anything that he does is spied on by the little sister, who's now more curious than ever about her mysterious older brother. About a week passes and the whole family is seated together at the dinner table. Here, Haruto learns that Charlotte and their mother will be heading out for a trip soon. Usually Gold himself goes to the annual festival that's held around this time. This year, though, they'll be going instead. Wanting to ensure their safety, Haruto asks his mother to take Flay with her, but she tells him the maid has been increasingly busy recently. She asks Haruto if he's set her to some task, which reminds Haruto what she's been doing. She told Haruto that she's going to threaten the demons in the area, not to attack the town or village. As he comes back to the present, Haruto realizes Charlotte is staring at him from over her cup, a stare which he believes is a harsh one. Later that evening, Haruto is lying in bed, just lazing around, when his surveillance alarms suddenly go off. Bringing up the video feeds, he sees a sight that simultaneously strikes fear and rage in his heart. Charlotte and Natalia have been ambushed on the way to the festival, and their guards have been overwhelmed. Natalia flees on foot and uses her magic to defend Charlotte and herself, but it quickly proves to not be enough. Luckily, just when things are looking to be finished, one of Haruto's communication barriers appears at Charlotte's ear. Thanks to directions provided by him directly, the two are able to make it to a hiding spot down a cliff, a large cave full of luminous gems and crystals. Believing this place to be too flashy, Natalia hides Charlotte further inside the cave. Here she tells her daughter that whoever is helping them is surely an ally of justice, since they're protecting the two of them from the bad people. She tells Charlotte to stay hidden and quiet while she goes to call that person. With a tearful goodbye, Natalia rushes out of the cave to face their pursuers. To her surprise, the entrance to the cave hides itself under an illusion spell. Face to face with those who would take her as a prisoner of war, Natalia prepares to take her own life so they can't get her. Right as her blade is about to pierce skin, though, it shatters from an unseen force and the woman collapses. In a single moment, Haruto has rushed onto the scene and grabbed his mother in his arms. Seeing the state she was driven to brings him a level of rage he has yet to experience in this life. In his anger, he lets his magic burst forth and launches all the enemies into the nearby trees, smashing them with considerable force. With the enemies defeated, Haruto returns to the cave where Charlotte is with an unconscious Natalia in his arms. He deepens his voice so Charlotte doesn't recognize him and calls out for her to stay with her mom while help arrives. Charlotte, however, has other concerns right now. Regardless of what he sounds like, she can recognize the aura of her savior clear as day. After all, she spent her whole life close to it. Right as Haruto is about to leave, Charlotte calls out to him, calling him big brother. Haruto responds out of instinct, blowing his cover in an instant. To Haruto's confusion, she asks him if he's an ally of justice. Completely stumped by the seemingly random question, he decides to just roll with it and tells her he is indeed. Of course, this launches the little girl into a whole spiel about how great he is and how she's had the wrong idea about him. Luckily for Haruto, this newfound respect means Charlotte is more than happy to keep the secret of his true strength. With that, the day is over, the family is safe, and they're all on their way home. That night, Haruto is in his father's office while he receives a report about the day's events. Other than those, Haruto accidentally lets slip that he knows about the fake thieves from the Empire. Luckily, he's able to cover it up as a deduction he made and even guides his father to the conclusion that there's a spy in the ranks at the border. Before the conversation can go any further though, the ladies of the family barge in, Charlotte declaring their arrival. To the parents' surprise, Charlotte rushes to embrace her brother after hugging Gold. While it's certainly a confusing and sudden sight, none of them can find anything wrong with this development. Well, unless you count Flay, the fangirl's pretty jealous. The end for now.
Thanks for watching. If you like this recap, please consider to like and subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell to be notified of any new recap. And while you're at it, check out this new recap appearing on the screen.